Mind the Culture, where I'm bringing you culture content from around the world, but analyzing it through the lens of psychology. Last week, we were taking a look at the attitudes and beliefs of these natural healers in Ecuador. We learned a lot about how these ladies or these healers really emphasize the importance of belief and hope in the treatment, along with the physical side of the power of the plants, is crucial to getting the most out of the treatment. And due to the fact that their treatments have been very effective over centuries and centuries of time, I think it's time that we unpicked why it's effective and how we can apply it to get the most effectivity out of our treatments. So before we start with the nerdy stuff, I'd like to say, if you'd like to skip this section about how this works, then feel free to skip this part of the video. I'm not here to waste your time. So if you'd like to know the answer to this question immediately, I'll be adding a timestamp to the footnotes below, so you can go ahead and just, click later. But anyways, for those of you who are slightly more interested in the neurological and psychological component of this, let's talk about why belief is so important in treatment effectiveness. Well, in our Western world, we refer to this as a taboo word, the placebo. Why did I put it in inverted commas? Because I don't like the negative connotations of this word. Normally in science, a drug is classed as effective if it can beat the placebo. And in a heck of a lot of cases, it can't, quite frankly. Because the placebo effect is real and it can be used as a form of treatment, and if not a form of treatment, a way to better the effectiveness of a treatment. Because it doesn't matter if it's physical, psychological, the drug, or the mind, if a treatment works, it works. Okay, so how can we actually feel better if very little or sometimes even no drug has been put in our body? But let's break down the components of the placebo effect. The placebo effect works with 3 different mechanisms. First one being psychosocial, second one being through expectations and memory and past experiences, and the third one being through learning. And we're going to be breaking down each one of these components so that we can find out how we can use this information to better our treatment effectiveness. And throughout this demonstration, I'll be using a very poorly, inaccurately drawn representation of the brain because I didn't want copyright to at me. So please don't at me for also being terrible at drawing and not very accurate either. There is a part of the brain called the prefrontal cortex. This part of the brain has a lot of control, like little puppets, over other parts of our brain, whether that's with our emotions or sensations. So this is a very big component of why the placebo effect works. Okay, let's start at number 1, psychosocial. So we're very social creatures, and there are many things going on in a doctor's office that aren't just a pure exchange. We have the eye gaze, the verbal cues, tone of voice from the doctor, which all influence our mind. It changes how we view the drug. It changes how we're gonna feel and experience and what we expect from the drug or the treatment. Another component is trusting the doctor's expertise. If you trust the doctor's expertise, this also boosts the placebo effect. All of these are components that come into the psychosocial element of the placebo effect, meaning that trusting your doctor's expertise and feeling their warmth can actually influence how effective your drug treatment is. For example, a study found that when more information was given to the patient by the doctor, the treatment was significantly more effective. So choose your doctors wisely, I would say. So the second component are the expectations and memories from past experiences. Remember when I was talking about that really cool area of the brain, the prefrontal cortex? It is responsible for predictions and expectations of outcomes. So if a drug has been really effective for you in the past, or a kind of treatment has been really great for you, then this will change the kind of information that your prefrontal cortex holds. But I hear you asking, why is that relevant? Well, this is the part that's really interesting. The prefrontal cortex has a top-down effect on a lot of parts of the brain, and this includes the pituitary gland, which controls your hormonal output. For example, a very famous and important study in the placebo effect world. They took 2 milkshakes, which were identical in contents, but they labeled one indulgent and one sensible. What the results displayed was really interesting. The participants that drank the one labeled indulgent had far higher levels of something called ghrelin, which is a hunger-promoting hormone. So this shows that our predictions or expectations, whether about a treatment or a milkshake, can physically change the hormonal output from our brain, which directly impacts our body and therefore treatment outcome. And the third and final component of the placebo effect are cues and learning. Have you ever just come home one day, open the door, your mum's cooking your favorite dish, and that makes you think of all of those childhood nostalgic memories? Oh. Well, in this case, the smell was a cue that triggered a memory and probably made you feel a little bit hungry, but also kind of a bit warm inside. Whenever we have an external cue, whether that's smell, sight, taste, it triggers a part in our brain called the cerebellum. And to cut a long story short, it basically triggers the same memory that you've associated with that cue before. And your body gets prepared for whatever it's about to intake or experience. So in the placebo effect for treatments, if you saw the same needle, the same drug packaging, if you were wearing the same treatment clothing that you were before, then your brain will be predicting that it's going to get better and that it needs to prepare for the drug or the treatment that it's about to intake. So now that we know how belief and faith can lead to a better treatment, let's look at how we can use this information to better our own treatment and trick our brains into self-healing. I'm going to be going through 3 different strategies that you can try and implement in your day-to-day life to try and improve the effectiveness of whatever treatment you may be having. The first one is to change your expectations through the use of information and belief in the treatment. So since expectations are formed through the belief in the treatment, you can use information as this kind of bridge between the two. So for example, doing research on how therapy or a drug or a treatment actually works and understanding it inside out can really boost your confidence and belief and understanding in the treatment. And like mentioned before, if you have more belief in the treatment, you expect more that the treatment will work, your prefrontal cortex will be more engaged in terms of engaging the rest of your brain to release the right kind of stuff to get you back on your healing tracks. The second one is to magnify your positive expectations through trust and past experience. In terms of trust, it's basically really important that you trust your healthcare provider. Whether that's a GP or a specialist or a holistic healer even, it's so important that you trust them and you trust that they have good expertise. Now, of course, you can do that in a lot of different ways, but the most important element about this is that if you don't trust your doctor and you don't believe they have high expertise, try and find another one. It can really have a big impact on how your treatment works. Another little technique here is that you can reanalyze past experiences with the same treatment that may be ongoing, analyzing exactly where you felt better and hyper-focusing on these elements. So if you take a journal or even just say it out loud repeatedly, hyper-focusing on the positive elements of this treatment, your brain will start to expect more of a positive outcome from the treatment too. And so the cascade goes on in terms of hormonal output and so on. And the third and final way to try and increase the effectiveness of your treatment is to try and be in the same environment every time you take that drug. So for example, be in the same bed, in the same clothes, with the same smells, even tastes around you. You can even use a specific scent or a specific cue to really associate with that treatment or that drug. Because if you do so, as soon as the body smells or sees or hears that cue, it's gonna already start to prepare your body for the intake of this drug. So, what's the take-home message of this video? I'd say, have a little faith. Thank you so much once again for watching this video, and don't forget, please, mind the culture. See you next time. Bye-bye.